everybody, Tom from IGN here with Corey and Robin from Valve. We're going to be walking through some early gameplay from Half-Life Alyx. Guys, set us up. What's going on in this scene and kind of where are we in the game?
This is really early on in the game. This is sort of an area we consider essentially the intro to combat. One of the things we realized is that we have to teach people how to do such rudimentary things as reloading and everything in VR, since they don't bring that with them. And in Half-Life Alyx, reloading is very much a physical activity. So we need to get you to learn a physical. We want to get you to have a muscle memory around that reloading, and the way to do that is to get you to shoot and reload a bunch of times. So at this point, we're using a lot of enemies that are not super threatening to you, but give you that opportunity to play with your reloading and all that sort of stuff. So things like barnacles, zombies, and so on.
Recognizable enemies from Half-Life
Definitely.
as well.
Yep. And one of the big challenges in this area that we ran into was that we're trying to make sure Half-Life Alyx is a VR game that everyone can get aboard. If this is your first VR game, we want you to feel comfortable getting into it. But of course, Half-Life is a game that has that sort of horror in its DNA that we need to maintain. And so we're very cognizant of the risks of scaring people off too soon. And so one of the things we've tried to do in this whole section is be extremely fair to the player. There are essentially no enemies that will jump out at you. We introduce enemies at a good distance. The first set of enemies, if you pay close attention to, especially in the sections coming up, they look threatening and they look like you're at high risk, but you actually have a good amount of time to deal with them. In some cases, you have as much time as you need, and we found through playtesting that we really needed that for the players who are really fumbling with their, learning how to use their body and get the reloading done in the time they have.
Yeah, there's already, we're seeing a bunch from the new gravity gloves, obviously, and there's sort of a muscle memory you got to pick up. We saw him, pulling these ammo clips to him and then throwing them over his shoulder to store them. Right now, throwing the explosive barrels towards the barnacles. That's kind of a classic Half-Life move as well. Is this? I imagine this section is kind of explicitly to teach you about this, right? This mechanic of letting barnacles kill themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, this whole section is just about you interacting with objects, you interacting with the enemy, and getting you to just sort of practice at this point. Switching weapons, going from your gun, going to your hand, throwing an object, switching to your gun, and reloading, because reloading players make mistakes sometimes. You put the clip in, you fire the gun, you run out of ammo, suddenly you're dry, where's my ammo, grab your ammo, There's just a lot more steps involved than just hitting the R button.
Right.
Than in the past.
We got our first zombie now climbing through the window as well. But like you said, this is still a section that is sort of easing you into the waters, right? Because only one of those zombies was really kind of coming at you like that.
Yeah, he does a nice slow animation. He's yelling at you to try and get your attention. He's going to move slowly down. He's completely constrained in a straight line before he gets to you. And this, it might sound like we've made this easy, but Jeff has played this game a bunch. He knows what he's doing. We have watched hundreds of people play through this. I think this is actually the area of the game we built first. So going back maybe 3.5 years ago, we built this chunks of this area, and it took a lot of iteration to find a space that worked for players of all the varying diverse range of skill and experience that you might have entering VR for the first time, and so making sure that they could all survive that. We've seen many playtesters who have got the hang of barnacles or something, and then that first zombie comes at them, and they may not have been an experienced gamer. They may not have made sure they had many shots in their clip. Maybe they had one shot left. They put that shot in. Now they need to reload for the first time. Well, there's a zombie coming at them, and they just go to pieces. One of the fun things about watching VR playtests is when people get into duress and make mistakes, it's almost always way more entertaining than in non-VR. And so you'll watch people fumble and drop clips, and you can see the footsteps of the zombie approaching them as they're bending down trying to grab that clip again.
So he's kind of looting the room here in a really methodical way, opening up all these lockers and now plug in. What is this actually? Because this is a reference to Half-Life 2, right? Where you step on the antlion grubs and that gets you health. and now it's sort of been actually like plugged into a health kit now for the Combine.
Yep. Yeah. The Combine use the antlines for a number of things, and you're going to see some more of that later in the product. One of the things we wanted to do, one of the things we observed in a bunch of our early playtests was that people really liked exploring the world and finding things, and so we wanted to give them these sort of mini goals. And so health stations like that one sometimes spawn without anything in them, and that tells you, oh, somewhere around here I need to find one of these health files, and so it becomes essentially a mini puzzle in that area. And as you go through the game, those mini puzzles become more complex and more elaborate.
So this is kind of one of my favorite things so far, which is this is actually an upgrade station, and all those little pellets, right, that he was picking up are essentially upgrade points.
They're resin that you've got to collect, and as you collect more, then you find these Combine upgrade stations, and they're able to modify your weapons, and so they become both like a goal for the player. As they go through the game, they might say, I really want to get that upgrade, so I really want to keep an eye for the resin, and also the reward for searching throughout the game.
So he just picked a hollow sight. I'm wondering if we could actually look at some of what the other upgrades for the pistol are. Because they're pretty powerful, it seems.
There's... Do we have to look at it?
We don't have to. The hollow sight's enough.
That's right. Yeah. You saw the names. How's that? Do your best guess. One of the things that was really fun, actually, was Tristan Reedford and some of the other artists who focused on the upgrades of weapons and stuff like that. They have a phrase that I love, and maybe you can get them to talk to you about it more, called mechanical responsibility, which is this idea that they really like making sure that the mechanics of things physically make sense. And so for every one of the upgrades, he really thought hard about how all those things actually work and modeled them very carefully in the weapons and stuff like that. And so
that was a close one.
It's a little distracted there.
Yeah, you can actually see all the little parts moving on the guns and all the little pieces that have been added. So as you upgrade your gun, you'll actually see the components get physically attached, but also their functionality as you use them. And
the UI is essentially like just your ammo count is those little lines on the side of the gun. Your health is on the back of your left hand.
You can see Jeff here using the reflex sight. Reflex sight, one of its other advantages is it will show you weak points on enemies. Some of these zombies have essentially small alien growths on them that we call bloaters, which act as a weak point for them. If you hit those, they'll detonate, and you can get them with a single kill, and they'll also kill other enemies around them. So it's not always the most efficient thing to just immediately shoot a zombie in the head. If you want to conserve ammo, you want to look at each zombie and see if it has a growth somewhere on it and shoot that. And as you've probably already found out in the sections you've played, we are going to make sure that you care about ammo. All right, ammo and extracting resources efficiently from the game as you move through it is an important part of the whole game.
Yeah, it's that management, that kind of gauging, okay, how many shots does taking down a zombie take? How many bullets do I have left in my magazine? Because if you eject the magazine early, you essentially lose the ammo that was in it.
Yep.
Talk to me about the design and the layout of this section as well in these levels, because you've done a really interesting thing in this subway system where you're going through trains and then out of the train to a different train. Like it's very dense, it feels. Like you're winding in and out a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely spend a lot of time thinking about how to utilize the space in these environments. And in this case, some of the space that we wanted to come up with was earlier on, like when we saw Jeff moving through the subway train, was how do we keep the zombies, away from you for just a little bit of time to let you get acclimated with the pistol mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned dense. Dense is a key word for us here. We spent a lot of time thinking about the amount that you need to move before new things happen, before you see something you haven't seen before, before some threat appears, before there's something you need to search and so on. And we've really tried to make sure that a bunch of the area that you're dealing with has that level of density in it, such that you never feel like you're moving very far before something grabs your attention, before something is needs you to look at or respond
react
to it.
or search for. There's lots of nooks and crannies to dig around through. There's more ammo and items to find.
Is that also kind of the nature of designing in VR, where you're not jump running through the entire level like you were in Half-Life 2? You have to you move a little more methodically.
I mean, I think this is one of the things that excites us as designers most about VR is not so much that the difference you just described there is a difference in how players behave, not in difference in the ways we want them to behave. When we built these areas initially, one of the things that we first noticed was like, wow, people are taking a lot longer to go through this. They're paying a lot of attention, and not because we're making them, but because they want to. They want to look behind every corner. They want to look under things and behind things, and they want to lift things up and look around. And so a lot of the gameplay elements we've ended up building around like the need to search for resin and the need to make sure you're efficiently extracting ammunition and so on out of the game all came from watching the behaviors that players were exhibiting in VR. And as designers, it's incredibly exciting. It's really fun knowing you can build an area and know that someone is going to really pay attention to it. They're going to look at that, that Zen foliage over there, and they're going to see what's around it and how it might react and all that sort of jazz. And so,
these are sites that are really. We're getting our first glimpse at a headcrab coming up, but these sites of like these little bits of Zen sort of bleeding into the city like that is very it's very grotesque in a way we haven't seen a ton of before, this up close and personal.
Yeah, I mean we're in the period of time in Combine history where the Combine have invaded, but they haven't really gotten control of Earth yet. They're still, right? The portal storms have arisen as a result of Black Mesa. And so you've got both Combine soldiers and, the Combine themselves, I should say, and the sort of Zen life forms coming out of it.
Right.
And you mentioned headcrabs, actually, since we're just arriving at the end here, but it's worth noting. Headcrabs are a thing that a bunch of people, when they hear we're building Half-Life in VR, their first reaction is, wait, are you crazy? Like, headcrabs? Just like jumping in my face? Who would ever want that? And our reaction, of course, was like, no, that's why we want to do VR. Like, it sounds amazing. But it was, again, a thing we were very, very careful to build around, right? We make sure you've gotten this sense of competency around dealing with some threats. Maybe you've got a weapon upgrade, you're feeling a little relaxed, you've got some comfort before we bring in the headcrabs to start dealing with that. Because we have found that a small, fast-moving thing that leaps at people's faces is really not the thing to start your game with. You really want to make sure they're a little more relaxed before you start doing that.
So that's all we've got today. Thank you very much for telling us about this section of the game. For more from Half-Life Alyx, you can come back right here on IGN. We've got our IGN First all month about Half-Life Alyx. We'll be bringing you more gameplay, more interviews, all that sorts of great stuff, so don't go anywhere.